Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Welcome Disruption. Today we're here with Rachel Keller from Serviam, who's showing us how having a call center can completely change the outcomes for our senior living providers. You don't want to miss this. Thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Welcome Disruption. Today, we're here with Rachel Keller from Servia Via Network, and we are going to go over some incredible insights on lead management and how contact centers can support our clients' outcomes. Thanks for being here, Rachel.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation.
So I know you just got back from Asha. Tell me what else is new and exciting.
I know. Well, you may have heard we have a very big announcement that we just announced. So Serviam's Via Contact Center is merging with Sherry Bebel's Senior Financial Specialists, and it's forming a new company called Catalyst Senior Living Solutions. So we're very, very excited about that. And I can tell you a little bit more if you're interested.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I love the concept of the Catalyst. So walk me through what is going to be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, so first it's important to note that Serviam Care Network is still existed, and we're really focusing on healthcare services, which is why we wanted to make this move. But we are a very purpose-driven company. We're actually a public benefit corporation. So when we looked at breaking off the contact center, we wanted to make sure it was with someone else who was very purpose-driven. And do you know Sherry Bebel?
We have not been introduced officially, no, but I've been kind of following the growth of the company.
I will have to get you guys connected. But she's a very purpose-driven individual as well. And so her company is really dealing with leads that have been financially disqualified. And she has advocates who work with families to re-engage them and get them to be move-in ready financially. And then the contact center handles all the leads from first contact all the way to scheduling qualified move-in. So having the two of those together really helps with your top of your sales funnel to drive more qualified leads to your team that you may already be missing. So we're just really excited about the two of those coming together under Catalyst.
What an incredible gap to have filled. One of the things that we've seen over and over is that lost lead funnel can sometimes be an absolute gold mine with the right support and the right engagement. So I think it's incredible that you guys are filling that gap and supporting the sales teams throughout that process.
Yeah, thank you. And I love your perspective too, because with you on the marketing side, like you see it firsthand. And that's what happens is we have a lot of marketers that drive leads to the sales team, and just because they have a million things that they're doing, sometimes they're over capacity and those leads get missed. And so having a trusted partner to help you with that first conversation is a great way to make sure all that money that you're spending on the marketing side is not going to waste.
Absolutely. I think the number, and this was years ago with McKnight's, was $491, per lead generated. You don't want to throw $500 in the garbage can.
Yeah.
And I know when we first connected, we did kind of a deep dive on one of the clients that I supported. We did an analysis of the missed phone calls. And 50% of their incoming phone calls were going unanswered. And talk about a heartbreaker, right? As a marketer, but Serviam can step in and support that lead, get that engagement going. Everyone's very focused on speed to lead, but we're also all running on bare bones staff.
Yeah. And I would say if you're somebody listening to this and you're like, oh, shoot, we also are missing leads, I would say you're not alone, because what we see a lot when people come to us is that they have leads coming in, and especially let's say it's like after hours or on the weekend, right? That lead goes into the front desk and maybe they get a hold of someone, maybe they don't. If they do, they're like, oh, you're looking for Sherry in sales, let me get you transferred. And then Sherry's busy giving it to her. And so then that lead just goes to voicemail or goes on a sticky note, then it doesn't get entered into the CRM. So a lot of marketers are hesitant to drive phone calls in their marketing campaigns for that reason, because the phone funnel is so leaky. So we completely understand why that's happening.
Yes. Sure. And we, again, because we are data driven, we use call tracking numbers on absolutely everything. It is essential that if there is a line item for it, it comes with a call tracking number, because being able to support our sales teams, even using some of the technology to do coaching, get trend reports, to be able to capture the value of each marketing touch point as it relates to one buyer. Did they reply to the email and the phone call? Did they reply to the direct mail and fill out an online form? Being able to assess that multi-touch is really, really powerful for ROI tracking, I think.
Oh, absolutely. We also do call tracking. And if somebody's already using it, like if somebody's one of your clients and comes over to us, they get to keep the same numbers, which is great. But being able to drill down and say, here's exactly where things are starting to break down. More knowledge is power, right? And so if you have that data and you have the full picture, you have somebody that works really well with your marketing agency, to your contact center, to your CRM team, that's where you're able to really see the full experience and be able to adjust your strategy accordingly in real time. So I love that you guys are so data driven.
Yeah, well, the fact that you guys are call tracking and recording as well. And I know when we spoke before, if you could just kind of go into the detail about how invested you are in capturing that client's voice, making sure that that communication is logged in the CRM. For those communities who are changing salespeople or who are struggling in that staffing department, I think that you guys have the ability to almost set a best practice.
Yeah. So what we do is that when we onboard a new client during the onboarding process, we deep dive into their brand, because our goal is to be an extension of your sales team and match your voice and your sales philosophy. So we'll even do things like, hey, if you are at the local level giving directions, what does that sound like? Do you say turn right at the McDonald's? We want to know, because we want to be able to really be a partner with that offsite sales team. Now, we're not pretending to be you, and we're not trying to go in depth as you are, but we're trying to be a good partner. And then from there, we do handle all those calls. So any of your phone leads that come in, third-party internet form leads, those all come into us. And we actually have a separate platform that we use that integrates seamlessly with the CRMs, because what you mentioned is really important. If it's disjointed, then that's not helping anybody. And so anytime our advocates are working a lead, that activity is tracked, the transcripts are tracked, the recording is tracked, and that goes into whatever CRM our clients use. So when it gets to the sales team, they're able to pick up on the conversation.
Absolutely perfect. That is the level of note taking and
Yes.
sales that we all want, right?
Yeah.
100%. So the other part of the transcript that I really appreciate is the ability, when we are doing data mining within our clients' CRM, to look for segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the use of the word veteran, the use of the word discount, just really drilling in on spouse versus adult child kind of language. I think it's really powerful first party data that you guys are able to feed into that system that may not be there initially, that ultimately leads to personalization. So I think we share a deep love for the marketing side of personalization and how we have to be informed from the discovery to be able to really deliver on that.
Yeah, and you have to ask the right questions. Like it starts at the beginning of providing that incredible experience. And I think our philosophy as a contact center is we're not going to read from a script. We're here to be that trusted advisor, to ask open-ended questions and really hear what you have to say so you can capture more of those keywords like you're talking about. So instead of just saying, oh, do you need IL, AL, memory care? They may not know what that means. Saying, what does a typical day look like for mom? And capturing that is more of our philosophy. And then from there, like you were saying, you're able to check and see those keywords, what's really driving outcomes, and be able to go from there.
Absolutely. And personalize that follow-up. If during that discovery call, say falling was mentioned,
that
salesperson is then wonderfully teed up to follow up via email and attach a tool, a tip guide. One of the things that we find, and I'm sure your sales teams appreciate having it, is when we're meeting with our onboarding team, first and foremost, what resources are available? Do we have brochures? Do we have that full checklist? Do we have a virtual tour that's emailable? What are our floor plan formats? Being prepared to inform either the Serviam team or a new salesperson, audit, if you will, of those brand assets.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I think about my research that I do, like for example, I just bought a rug, for my bedroom. And my husband made fun of me. Yeah, my husband made fun of me because of all the research I did on this rug. Because I'm like, well, I have a dog, and what if my dog throws up on the rug? Is it going to be washable? You know, I'm looking at reviews. And to your point, we're more informed now than ever. And so being able to really research on our own terms, but for your team, giving them the resources that they would be searching for is really important.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the consumer first, right? Because we're consumers first. And we recently published a blog about the multi-generational buyer and how each of our generations kind of researches a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, overall, we're all going to the dark funnel. Before we make a big decision, we're reading the reviews. Before we take a job, we're looking at the Glassdoor. Before we buy a car, we're talking to our friends and family about the brand. There's a lot that goes into that pre-connection. So the fact that your team is prepared and ready to take that discovery call and it doesn't end up in a voicemail once they've done all that work.
Yes, I'm glad you went there because that's where I was about to go too. Is like, okay, so then imagine you finally pick up the phone. Like you go through all of that, you're ready, you're like, okay, I've really thought this through. I'm ready to talk to someone. You pick up the phone and then you either have a poor experience or you just like don't get a call back or you don't have anyone that you talk to. Unfortunately, that is the reality for a lot of these senior living communities. And unfortunately, when you go talk about data, a lot of times we can't even track how many calls we're missing, right? We don't even fully know. And so that's why having a team is so, so important because those leads are too hot not to have a really strong system in place.
Right. And a meaningful connection on the other end of the phone, a well-trained, well-versed person that can support me. Because we talk a lot about, behaviorally who picks up the phone versus who picks up a form. But I think we also have to take into consideration the psychological threshold that exists around picking up the phone and actually talking to a person way before we get to the physical threshold of walking in the building.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of, am I doing the wrong thing? Will they be angry with me? Have I overstepped my boundaries? Like we went through, we go through the buyer's journey over and over and over again when we go through a client CRM. And you can hear if the notes are taken well, you can hear the steps that went into pushing them into making this next meaningful decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But having a warm voice on the other end of the phone could be the difference between that person giving up on senior living as an option or not.
I know another example that I love to say is one time my husband was like trying to get some sort of service for a house. I can't even remember. Let's just say it was like bugs or something. And he called somebody, didn't answer. So what does he do immediately? He calls the next person on the list. And I know I even did this with Christmas lights. The person who gave me the best response and the best customer service was the one that I went with, right? And it's like, sometimes we have to take ourselves out of it, of like our own selling or being in our job and think about it from our own viewpoint and how we've done this in our own lives. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is so important. This is how I'm choosing my decision is based on the type of quality customer service that I got from the very, very beginning.
Right. And the more expensive, the more disruptive, the more impactful the decision, the more you need that trust on the other end. You really need to know that you are making the right decision. And I use the dark funnel as that entry point because they do ask around. Reputation does matter. Reviews are a game changer. And if someone else didn't get a phone call back, that's going to ultimately impact the next opportunity. Yeah. But I think that having someone who's consistently answering the phone is the first step. Having an informed team. And one of the things that I've said, and I think it's been about a year now solid, I will die on the hill of the last man standing wins.
Oh, tell me more.
Yes, we do market research for our clients. Sometimes we're mystery shopping, and I will have some communities a year later, 2 years later, still following up. Now, if I had delayed the decision, as we know families do, that when the crisis time comes, the first one I'm going to think of is the last one I heard from.
Yes. Yeah.
So when it comes to sales team follow-up, we started off our conversation talking about lost leads. It pains my heart to jump into a lost lead file and see moving in with granddaughter 6 months ago. Oh, now is the time to follow up. Now is the time to circle back, but they're on a lost leads list.
Yeah.
And so I think re-engaging database lost leads on a semi-regular basis is worth considering. And I like that you guys have a financial support system now that could help maybe segment those even further and advance those leads.
Yeah, and I think it's been interesting. You asked about Asha and all the conferences that we go to. One of the topics that I'm starting to see on a regular basis is centralizing your sales teams. So I think operators are starting to realize this, that the sales director is not following up the amount of times that they need to. And it's not like a slight on them. I think they're doing incredible work. It's just, there's a lot to do. And so is it going to be more cost effective and more efficient and boost your bottom line to outsource or create it internally? And there's pros and cons to each. But what we can do, and what you mentioned, is that following up on cold leads. So in addition to just the regular lead management that we do, number one, we customize what the cadence that you want. Some of us only want us to call a few times and then hand it off. Some want us to call a lot. We can call up to 20 times over a 90-day period. And we do get leads on those, 18, 11 call, whatever it is. But we also run cold lead campaigns. So if you have a list of leads that have gone cold, we can do a callback, and that ends up getting a ton of tours every time we do that for our clients. So even if you're thinking about what are some like small ways that I can start putting my toe in the water of testing out the centralized system, the cold leads are a great way to get started.
I think that's a fantastic support service that you guys offer. And I know I echo your sentiments. The sales teams are doing their best.
Yeah.
I know one of the mantras we use is sales only sales. But at the end of the day, one of the things we've also identified is that resident onboarding and move-in experience. When we just hand that right off, sometimes we lose that opportunity to use that person as a referral source because that part of the experience gets lost, right? So we really want to maintain that connection through post-purchase as a sales stage. That takes even more time away from our salespeople. So how do we support that with specific tactics? I know
that is so true. I know, like, again, just bringing it back to personal experience, like, have you ever been in a sales cycle where you feel like, I know these people, like we just brought on HubSpot, right? As our own internal CRM. I feel like I know those guys. And then you make the sale and you're like, oh, bye. And you just never see them again. And how meaningful is it to you if they still keep up with you? Just checking in, don't say checking in, but how are things going? They take that extra step to keep in contact with you. To me, as a buyer, I'm like, they actually care about me, right? I wasn't just another dollar to them. They actually truly care. So I love what you said about having that be like a second or a last stage in your sales cycle, is just that continuing to keep that relationship going.
Yes. And it's two-part. Like if we look at where is the breakdown point where we may lose a move out, where their satisfaction might wane, let's make sure we're staying hand in glove up until that point. So it's really that, kind of the 360. And I say your last 3 move-ins need to be your next 3 referral sources. How do we outfit, brand ambassadors? Because when you like a product, do you tell your friends?
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody? Do you post it on social?
No, but even now, like parties, it's like your one thing for the year, your favorite thing, that's even trending. So it's like, how could senior living do that? Like your favorite thing. It's my community. Come over. We're going to host a party at my community.
Come visit. We're having a tea party. We're having, opening the doors and making it, kind of a third space. I know that's been a lot of the conversation as well, is what activities are the residents engaged in that they can bring people in and they can experience the community firsthand. There's a lot of direct, what you would almost call guerrilla style, I think, brand ambassadorship that we could really outfit our residents and our teams with, their families as well. But just again, going back to the experience, you guys make it so that from the first phone call to hopefully any phone call coming in after that is getting routed appropriately, and that we're consistently seeing improved results.
Oh yeah. So we can measure, we capture what is your current inquiry to tour rate. And we see that go up usually around like anywhere from 4 to 10 percentage points by bringing us on. And when you're getting more tours, what happens? Well, your salespeople are spending more time on revenue generating activities. The rest of the metrics move as well. We also track like contact rate, speed to lead, abandonment rate. We know a lot of metrics that people just aren't typically capturing when it comes to calls in particular.
Yeah, I love that. For us, again, looking at the drop rate, like that, as much as I would like to say, hey, the X percentage were answered, I'm focused on what percentage weren't, how those were handled. And even looking at the math on that, to see that you're going to be capturing more of those phone calls is increasing that overall inquiry number. And to still be able to lift the inquiry to tour ratio is fantastic.
Absolutely. I know. And I think people, typically what we see is people want to test it out because sometimes they're like call center, it's a little scary, or contact center is a little scary. And so they'll start out with a few communities just to see, but it's like the proof is in the pudding. You'll see your numbers move within the first few months. And that's when you can really start to accelerate. So if you're thinking about it, but you're like, don't know if I can trust it, totally okay. Try it with just a few and then see how it goes. And then you can kind of scale from there in your organization.
I'm a big fan of iterative learning. And I think beta testing, piloting a program, making the tweaks necessary to get it right, then moving on to expanding and expanding, scaling what works and losing what doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's ongoing learning. I love the concept of fail forward, right? So speaking of forward, what trends are you seeing as we look into 2025? I know you just did a conference round.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would just say people are looking for ways that they can be more streamlined in their processes. So I'm seeing that across the board, but since we're specifically talking about the sales and marketing piece, I think that senior living operators are kind of moving into this idea of centralized sales and thinking, how can I really create specialty teams who are just focused on certain parts of the sales funnel to drive more efficiency? And whether, people are trying to find good partners or do it themselves. I think if my recommendation for the people who are trying to find a good partner is just make sure that, number one, you understand how long have they been in business? Are they someone who really has this down? Are they senior living specific? And then are they willing to customize to you? Because what one community may need may be completely different than a company that's, in a different part of the States, right? Your sales philosophy may be different. So checking if they're going to be a good partner, and then are they willing to integrate? Like if someone's using us and they're using you, we want to be good partners and make sure we're sharing data and really streamlining, right? That would be another thing that I would recommend. Test and learn, see how it goes.
Absolutely. I would say the same when organizations are looking for the right tactical team for a marketing initiative or a marketing partner overall. It's test it, make sure you find what works for you, make sure they're senior living focused, because there are so many nuances to this buying journey, and deeply understanding the emotional experience of the end users, whether it's the sales team end user, the operator team end user, or our residents and their families. They're all stakeholders in the same ongoing effort. And organizations like yours and mine and all of the ones that we partner with are there to advance those initiatives.
Yeah, definitely. So good.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to say 2025 is going to continue to be the year of the experience. And I love that Serviam is there to support the experience. And if any of our listeners want to find you, what is the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, so I would say message me on LinkedIn. My DMs are open. But if you're curious to learn more about Catalyst, whether you want to look at contact center or the financial side or both, feel free to reach out to me as well. I'm happy to walk you through it or just to connect. I am a big believer in connecting with others. And so even if you just want to get a virtual coffee, let me know. I'd love to do that as well.
I love that. This whole industry is about relationships, and I love our connection, and I look forward to supporting Catalyst as you guys continue to grow.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.